Hey guys, how you doing? Luna here with a new video for the channel. I hope you're doing well. Today we have a brand new episode of the Overrated series where I take your favorite artists and ask the question, are they overrated? Today is a sad episode, guys. Apparently, I don't know why, but I just have this urge to make this video about people that are dead. And today's turn is Mac Miller, Mac with the cheesy raps, Larry Fisherman, Delusional Thomas, all of those motherfuckers together in one person, one mind, one brain. Mac is one of those artists, that you grew up with. Me personally, I'm 21 years old. I've never been that interesting into music. This music thing and reviews thing came up like 5 years ago when I had like an epiphany with To Pimp a Butterfly and decided that, I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. But even before that, I already listened to Mac Miller quite a lot. I didn't listen to the albums. I didn't know that albums, were a thing, but I really loved listening to Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza, Wear My Hat, Nike's on My Feet. Today we're gonna ask the question, is Mac Miller overrated? And to do that, we're gonna have quite a few things on the table, like influence, importance, popularity, discography, and performance. Based on that, we will decide if Mac Miller was in fact an overrated artist or not. Remember guys, this is only my personal opinion, so if you have your own, feel free to leave it down below in the comments. I mean no disrespect to Mac Miller as an artist, and as a person. To me, I'm just reviewing his music. I really do, feel heartbroken still for the fact that he passed away. It was one of the most crushing news I've ever, received in terms of the mainstream music landscape. So I'm gonna try to be as respectful as possible about every single one of the topics I touch in this video. And with that being said, let's just go on. I always put popularity first because I don't give a shit about how popular an artist that I like is. Whether I like your music or not, it's the important thing, not the popularity, not how many people listen to you. In order to say if someone's overrated or not, you have to look at, how people actually perceive the artist. Do they think it's one of the most popular rappers in the game? Do they think that, he's just, slightly popular, like a B-grade celebrity? And in Mac's case, I believe that, people often go for the middle lane. They've heard about him, they've heard a few tracks, and that's pretty much it. Or at least that's the way it was before he died. Once he died, a lot of people were claiming to be, Mac Miller stans, and everyone loved him all of a sudden. That often happens with people that die. I don't know why. I'm gonna say that he's not overrated only because I don't really see that many people saying that he's one of the most famous ever, and he certainly isn't. So yeah, I'm just gonna say that he's fairly rated in terms of popularity. No one gives a shit. That's the reason why I'm not getting into detail about this. He's not overrated. Now let's go with performance. Performance is really important for a rapper, especially if you're white. If you're white, you have to prove that you can actually rap, because if not, you have no credit in the rap game. And for Mac, it kind of depends on which one we're talking about. Is it the singing Mac Miller or the rapping Mac Miller? In both cases, I would say that he's incredibly overrated. I love Mac, I love his music, but something that often comes to, to my head every time I talk about Mac is how many horrible performances he's had throughout his career. In early Mac Miller, you have some really bad flows and horrible deliveries, really bad production too that doesn't help the performance at all, but overall it's just a bad idea, bad flow, bad delivery. In projects like Hits, Best Day Ever, Macadelic, you can feel that sometimes he's just tired of rapping, man. Or sometimes he'll be trying to act tough, and if you've seen Mac, you know that he's not the most menacing looking guy out there. And regarding his new discography, I would still argue that he's overrated because he's, in terms of rapping, he's very self-aware of what he can and cannot do. But when it comes to singing, I think that he still has a lot to improve, or had a lot to improve. He cannot improve anymore. He is singing in albums like The Divine Feminine, in albums like Faces, in albums like Good I Am. And even swimming, it's really bad. Like, it feels like he's not even trying. It feels like he's out of breath constantly. He can, the notes that are not really that difficult to hit, he seems to be struggling a whole lot. And that really just gets you off the romantic and somehow sexy mood of the track. He does have some really good performances, in terms of singing in the album Circles, but even in that record, you can find a few tracks like Once a Day. Also, the track Good News have some pretty, it's a pretty emotional track, and I personally love it. But I have to say, the singing in that one isn't really the best thing of the track. And you do have some good performances in Macadelic, The Best Day Ever. The title track is amazing, the flow is immaculate. A lot of the tracks from Kids, for example, Nike's on My Feet, I think they sound really well. He raps his ass off on that track, and he sounds really cool and unbothered. But, apart from that, you do have a lot of shitty ones. And I have seen a lot of people saying that his rapping is top tier, and I just don't think it is. I think that often with Mac, it's more the emotion that he puts into the lyrics rather than, the actual performance. In terms of performance, I just think that he's so corny sometimes that yeah. So yeah, I am gonna say that Mac is overrated. His rapping is overrated. No, there's not a lot of people praising his singing, but there are a shit ton of people praising the way he raps, and that's the reason why I believe it's overrated. So in terms of lyrics, is Mac Miller overrated or not? Let me tell you something. Maybe in his early years of music, I would say that he is quite overrated. He delivers some really corny, embarrassing, cringy lines in those albums. But ever since his Best Day Ever, he does have a lot of self-aware moments where he does seem to be saying some really important, deep shit. Mac somehow has a really specific and disturbing way to talk about sex, which is something that kind of makes me want to say that he's overrated, because in albums like The Divine Feminine, like the amount of detail that he tells you is fucking insane and not really sexy overall. It seems like he's sexually assaulting you at certain points in the record. Every time that he talks about sex, he seems to be so needy for it, like he's actually begging for you to fuck him. But when he's talking about many different things, like for example the album Swimming and Circles, when he's talking more about his mental health, the way that people perceive him, and the way that money doesn't really make happiness, he does say some really important, real shit that has kept me through a lot of sleepless nights. I've been listening to Swimming non-stop ever since it came out. I really love that album, not because of the way that it sounds. I wouldn't say it's one of the best albums ever, but because of, the things that Mac is saying. I just love to hear it again and again. It's like therapy for me, to be honest. And in albums like Faces, he can say some really cool shit, especially in the track Diablo or Funeral. Really self-aware and deep thoughts on that track. He has some playful, interesting lyrical concepts, like in the track Brand Name, where he banks a lot of, wordplay. Or the track 100 Grand Kids, where, 100 grand, like money, $100,000, or 100 grand kids. And the album Circles, it's really, the story of someone who already knows or is aware that there's something wrong with him and is trying to get out of the situation by changing his lifestyle and changing the way that he acts. And that's just beautiful. So no, even though you do have some corny lines here and there, especially in albums like Swimming in Circles, again, really serious topics touch on those albums, you cannot say that the man is overrated. He really does know how to drop some bars. He really does know how to do shit. So because of that, and because of how real and how personal his lyrics are, and how much, how relatable they are, or how relatable I find them, I'm gonna say that he's not overrated. Actually, if anything, he's underrated in terms of lyrics. Last but not least, we're talking about discography. Yes, one of the most important, actually the most important thing an artist must have. If you don't know how to fucking rap or sing, if you have no good lyrics in your albums, and if you're not popular at all, I don't give a shit. Do you have a good discography? Because if you do, then come home to daddy. I can help you. I can give you a home in my Apple Music saved list. And when it comes to Mac, let's take a look. Those early albums, like Kids, Blues Light Park, Best Day Ever, the mixtape, or Macadelic, are really rough listens. And listen, I know that many of you love that one, but I think that nostalgia is playing tricks on your mind. Those albums aren't as good. I know you love them. I know you like those albums a lot. I know they have a really special place in your heart. They do have that place for me too. But then we have Watching Movies with the Sound Off, Faces, and Good AM. They're really long listens, and you really do have to enjoy this sound if you want to stay through the whole hour and a half most of these albums lasts. But they're really great records. I do think that Mac matured a lot during these years of his life. I think that his music matured a lot. It was more interesting, when watching Movies with the Sound Off and Faces you have like a psychedelic element to the beats, and Mac sounds really good because he sounds high half of the time, so he really fits into that sort of sound. And in Good I Am, he kind of, hints towards the type of music that he wanted to do with the Divine Feminine by singing more in his tracks and, having more R&B influenced in the mix, like the track Weekend with Miguel. But then you have Swimming and Circle is pretty much the two greatest albums that Mac Miller has released, in my opinion. So yeah, pretty much in terms of discography, I wouldn't say that Mac Miller is overrated. I think he has a pretty solid discography and one that represents growth and maturing and growing up. His early albums, it was clearly amateurish and childish and just fucking stupid at some points. Then the midpoint of his career, he seemed like he learned a lot from those early years. He started to see his life in a different way and started treating his music in a different way, not just to make money, but to actually create something that stood through the years. And then the last albums, the last point of his career is basically him looking back at everything that he did, feeling regret, but also coming to terms with it, appreciating it because it's what made him what he is today, and just acknowledging all the things that he has done. And the music, the sheer beauty of those records represent that really well. So I would argue that in terms of discography, I don't think that Mac Miller is overrated, which leads me to the conclusion. And that conclusion is that Mac Miller is not overrated. For me, I just feel like he's a type of artist that his fans actually acknowledge him for what he is. No one out here is trying to say that Mac is the best white rapper or the best rapper or, the best lyricist in the world. We just like the way that he is and we fuck with it and we listen to the music. And it's always been like this. A lot of people see his career after he died and just like to point out every single detail and act as if it's the best thing ever when it's not. But to the real fans and to the vast majority of people, I believe that we loved Mac as he was with his flaws, and not only him as a person, not only the flaws that he portrayed in his music, but also the flaws that affected his music directly and made it sound not as good as they could have. Accepting all his flaws as a musician and just loving every single second of it. For me, I think that his career again represents growth, represents someone that constantly improves himself. And even though it's a slow process, and even though that process never got finished, I do believe that with Circles a cycle ended, and I believe it was a good goodbye for us, the fans. I don't think that Mac Miller is overrated. I wouldn't say that he's underrated either. I wouldn't say that he's the best artist in the world. It was just someone that gave me a lot of music that I enjoyed and gave me a lot of music that I didn't enjoy, because not everything is perfect. So I don't think that he's overrated, and that will be the end of this video. I really hope that you guys enjoy. If you did, go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the videos that I upload. Please remember that this is only my personal opinion, so if you disagree with me or you agree with me, leave it down below in the comments so we can have a small conversation, just you and me. Come on, what are you waiting for? With that being said, once again, I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that I can see you guys soon with a new video. But until then, bye.